So looking forward to the Council meeting. We've come fresh from the UK, where we had a very good UK-Ireland summit this morning and last evening, and that was a very constructive engagement. I think today is an opportunity again for the European Union to demonstrate its ongoing commitment and support for Ukraine in what has been a terrible war and a terrible ordeal for the Ukrainian people since the illegal invasion by Russia of Ukraine 3 years ago. And also, I welcome the proposals that will increase the capacity of member states to improve its defence and security capabilities. And I think a number of flexible, pragmatic but strong proposals have emerged from the Commission in the context of flexibilities in the Stability and Growth Pact, for example, in terms of spending, and also in terms of the 150 billion loan facility, also the potential of some member states to utilise other mechanisms such as cohesion funds. All of that is kind of, when you put it together, is I think an innovative approach to create a resource base for member states to improve their security capability and defence capabilities. And as I've been saying consistently, we cannot have the proper operation of the single market or our economies depend on a strong security architecture across Europe. And so this is very indispensable spending in terms of the quality of lives of our citizens to ensure that we can continue to have peace and prosperity into the future. And it also signals a growing direction in respect of self-reliance within Europe itself in terms of its own defence and security, given the geopolitical situation as it's emerging.
Taoiseach, just on defence spending, we're talking of significant figures. The government also has a lot of priorities: housing, health. For defence, where is the money going to come from? Is it going to come from those other?
Well, I think at the moment within our budgetary frameworks and our ambition to level of ambition 2, that's all manageable within our current fiscal framework. And we had good figures again this morning in terms of the future, in terms of level of ambition 3, which won't kick in for a number of years. Obviously, we'll assess that at that particular point in time. But what's happening here does give additional mechanisms that we in other states could use. At the moment, we're not borrowing because we have a surplus in our exchequer financing. We have the largest capital programme at the moment underway. And also, of course, we're particularly focusing on cyber security threats, maritime security threats, working with other member states. We're procuring a primary radar system, and we're likely to be doing that via the joint procurement model. It's already gone out to tender during my time as Minister of Defence. And I think the broader issues that face Europe face us as well in terms of procurement, speed of procurement, the nimbleness of the defence industry globally and within Europe to respond to increasing demands and so on. So these are kind of real pragmatic issues that are facing member states at the moment.
On neutrality, do you have any concerns about how those EU budget funds are going to be used potentially to buy weapons? Does it contravene any assurances Ireland was given in the past under the Lisbon Treaty? And are you going to avail of any of them? The loans, the cohesion funding, the flexibility and the Stability and Growth Pact?
No, you see, we don't avail of a whole lot of cohesion funding as it speaks. This really primarily will help other member states across Europe who will need that flexibility in their fiscal frameworks and will need these mechanisms to increase their spending on defence, and particularly some countries who feel very vulnerable at the moment in terms of the Russian threat. So, as things presently stand, in the context of our policy of military neutrality, which essentially means we're militarily non-aligned, we're not members of NATO, this does not in any way contravene that. I mean, investing in your own security, investing in your own defence capability does not contravene military neutrality. We have a peacekeeping force. We're out in Lebanon. There has to be interoperability with other countries that we work with on peacekeeping missions, and so it's logical. And we genuinely have to enhance our own capabilities. We're coming from a low base in Ireland. It has to be acknowledged compared to other member states in terms of our capabilities, and we shouldn't confuse the two. I'm not saying you're, but people might, and I think it's important that we don't confuse the two issues.
Just on the coalition, the will, did you speak to Keir Starmer about that this morning? What's Ireland's position on that potentially? And also, do you agree with Emmanuel Macron when he said last night that European allies, the United States, are changing their position?
I mean, the positions change on an ongoing basis. I think what is very clear, talking to European leaders, is the need to be more self-reliant within Europe itself, to increase Europe's own capabilities. I did speak to the British Prime Minister last evening, and I think we have said on the record publicly already that we're willing to do everything we possibly can to help. Obviously, there are two strands. One would be in terms of a cessation of hostilities or whatever, and there was a peacekeeping monitoring mission required. Ireland would look at that and see what we could do to help in that situation. We would not be part of a deterrent force, however, which is a more longer term, and we don't have that military capability, and it would be a different order, particularly in the context of the issues that was raised earlier. I think on we have been involved in peacekeeping for decades in different locations across Europe and the world, and Africa and so on. So we're open to that.
In the future, would you be ready to take the responsibility to tell your people we're going to spend less on education and health to spend more on Ukraine and defence?
Ireland
Is this a choice you're going to have to make?
No, at the moment we don't have to make that choice. And I would simply say we should also bear in mind that security capability and defence capability is a broad spectrum, which will involve education, which will, in fact, the most effective way to improve your overall security as a nation is to invest in education, actually, invest in research and development on top of that. And also the conduct of warfare is changing, the conduct of military capability is changing. So, for example, we have to be much smarter in terms of how we allocate resources. Technology is going to be the key area in the future. And this is something that militaries have to look at too and examine very quickly. There's conventional sort of hardware, but in the modern era, it's clear to us that technology will be fundamental. So investment in education is going to be key. In terms of just take the whole drone technology, what's happening there, in terms of your utilities, for example, how you protect your utilities. I mean, your water systems are vulnerable to cyber security attacks. Health systems are vulnerable. So they have to be innovative, forward-looking, and very much focused on technology.
Taoiseach, it's still not clear what kind of security guarantee the US could provide. I mean, that's an ongoing conversation. Without that backstop, as it's phrased here, could European peacekeepers be deployed to Ukraine to monitor some sort of post?
Well, I think I don't want to jump ahead of what's happening at the moment. I think my own view is that I think peace is important, and I think that the fact that we are now focusing on peace is not, to me, is a good thing. It's the nature of that peace and how that peace comes about is an issue, where there are different perspectives. I think we should continue to engage. And I had useful discussions with the British Prime Minister this morning in relation to that. I'm looking forward to discussions with my colleagues later. And I think this will evolve, but engagement and dialogue with our US partners as well is extremely important, and with others.
And will you be
Taoiseach, when it comes
relaying
to your
that?
meeting next week with President Trump, are you now expecting, after the Taoiseach's call with Marco Rubio, that trade imbalance with Ireland is going to be a concern that's going to be raised with you? How are you going to approach that?
Well, I think the economic relationship between Ireland and the United States is a very robust one. And certainly I will take the opportunity to articulate the very significant contribution that Irish companies make to creating jobs in the United States, and particularly companies like Ryanair, AirCap and others do extraordinary business with the United States, but also support and create a lot of jobs in the United States. So it's a two-way street, but we'll take that, we'll discuss all of that next week. Thank you very much.